Hi, welcome to CIG Cribs. I'm Max Snowden, and this is where the magic happens. So VFX in video games, certainly in our games in particular, it's basically it's energy represented visually. So your more typical VFX explosions, fire, all that kind of thing, they're representing that kind of energy and the motion and the force and the violence that comes through. Even things like leaves getting blown around by the wind, it's motion in games. VFX are everywhere in Star Citizen. So there's coolant, there's steam, there's mist, there's fog, there's falling leaves, there's buzzing flies. If the player fires a weapon, they're going to expect some kind of payload for that. They're going to expect to see muzzle flashes, depending on the weapon, of course, but they're going to expect to see impact effects. Again, without them kind of VFX in a game, it's hard for the player to really read what's happening. They're not kind of getting them visual cues, and it sort of hinders their progress. I think VFX matter in Star Citizen because the visuals are fantastic in our game, but without the actual VFX, everything can look very static. There's not always the most tangible thing in a frame that the player sees, but when you take away VFX, they kind of notice that they're not there. I joined CIG 9 years ago, and there was quite a small group of us actually. There was 3 or 4 of us VFX artists. So originally the VFX were struggling for consistency. It was obvious that it was a project in its very early days, and we were looking for that identity. We were looking for that kind of consistency of visuals, that language that can be understood by the player. And that's really why you build a team, why you build a department, to allow that kind of continuity in VFX in a game. So really in the 9 years that I've been here, we've kind of built a department, a proper department full of different skill sets, different disciplines. We've got a whole programming team, we've got production, we've got embedded QA, we've got concepts. We've obviously got artists as well. We now have a coherence of visuals. We have a language that is understandable and works for the player. We had a good base in the first place, but now the toolkit is really, really powerful, and it needs to be for the ambition of the VFX in the game. So the VFX team is basically a microcosm of game development. The team is currently 21 people. We also have a core team within that, being the programmers, the production side of it, the concept inside of it, and the QA side of it as well. And we need that because we're serving other departments. We're serving art, we're also serving design. And we need to have that kind of skill set within the team to be able to do all the things that are requested of us.
I'm Leo van Stinkesse. I'm a principal VFX programmer. I do 2 things. I manage a small team, 3-4 people of VFX programmers, and I kind of handle the different projects that we have as a team that gets done. And then the second part is I do some programming myself as well. So I intentionally kept the team pretty small so that I have some time to program myself as well.
My name is Francesco. I am a VFX programmer. We had a team of 4 VFX programmers, and the one that manages me is Leo. I program specific graphics features and tools and other stuff related to VFX, specifically mainly for artists to be able to do work with and create really nice visuals from.
My name is Alexander. I'm on the VFX team as a tools programmer. My job is to create sliders and UI elements to make it intuitive for the artists to work with. We have a lot of different environments and effects, and we need to take care of every single one of them. And it's my job to make sure that it's easy for an artist to work with different type of effects.
I'm Callum, and my job in the VFX team is assistant producer. So generally, day to day, I do scheduling and just supporting the team in anything that they need to do. So they get to focus on the creative things whilst I deal with what they would class as the boring side of game development.
If the VFX team didn't have a producer, it would be horrible. He manages a lot and talks to other teams and makes sure we have all the information we need to be able to start working on a task. If we had to do that ourselves, that would be a lot of hours wasted every day.
The VFX editor is basically the place where you create the effects. You give it a texture or a picture, and you change a few values, and suddenly it moves, and you see coming to life. It could be a smoke, it could be a fire, it could be lightning. There is not much you can do without the code. That would make the artist a programmer?
We program everything related to VFX. That includes tools, that includes features, that includes smaller things like triggering VFX from game code to system for managing VFX, making sure that VFX stay alive, that they die on time. As VFX programmer, we get to work closely with VFX artists.
My name is Kevin and I am a VFX artist here at CIG. 90% of the effects we make in Star Citizen are particle effects. When you fire a weapon, at the end of the barrel, we will spawn a particle with a texture on it, and then we modify parameters to be able to make that look like a muzzle flash or smoke or whatever. So basically, we just have a bunch of parameters on how to spawn, how to move, and what a particle looks like.
Star Citizen is a really beautiful game, and VFX are a large part.
Effects really need to be tailored for basically every possible situation. This gives a lot of opportunities for creating visuals and effects in ways that you would normally not see in other games.
The VFX needs to be seen from every angle, from a very far distance to very close up.
We have such varying scales, from just small rooms to planets to ships, and even just empty space itself.
Everything needs to be dynamic and systemic, so all the VFX, they are based on the underlying systems. We get to look at these systems, find the right hooks, and try and trigger the right effects at the right time. Getting all of that together to get a consistent whole is pretty challenging, but the results are always pretty cool.
The relationship within the team is very dynamic. We work together a lot, and it kind of depends on what you're working on to who's involved. Production tends to be involved a lot of the time, generally on a day-to-day basis.
Working closely with artists and obviously other programmers is pretty great. There is a lot of feedback and information circling around what parts of what you're working on you may want to improve on, or even what parts are working well and should be iterated on even further. It creates an environment in which no one feels like they're stuck on something.
So the VFX team, we're basically a support team for everyone else. We create effects for the vehicle team. We create effects for the locations teams, including planets. Any location you can think of, we're going to be adding effects to them in some form or other. And gameplay as well. Obviously, all of these things are design-driven, so we need to create effects that help designers provide that feedback to the player. We won't always be working on the effects at the exact same time.
We don't really come in towards the end, because we don't want to work on something that's going to get changed eventually. So once a ship has been approved, that's when the VFX team starts to work on it. Mostly people don't notice VFX. I think subconsciously they do. They look at a ship and they see a cool thruster, or when it dies, a cool explosion or whatever.
But then again, we have the subtle effects. You don't notice it, and the less you notice it, the better it is. It just plays in with the whole environment.
We provide a supporting role, and we contribute to making the game as good as we can. The future of VFX at CIG is bigger and better, as cheesy as that might sound, but it's maintaining existing effects, and it's building tools within the team that make that possible. So one example of kind of tool improvements to help us maintain as well as improve effects is external referencing.
Let's say you have two water effects. They look very alike, but there is a slight difference. And suddenly an artist makes an even better picture to use for these water effects. My job then was to implement a feature to just be able to change the picture of one effect and both of them change at the same time.
And what that's going to do is allow us to have a small group of master effects that we can then propagate to other effects libraries throughout the game. And it means we can maintain a smaller group of effects, and we can make sure that those improvements cascade throughout all the other libraries where those type of effects will be used.
Being able to have the same effect looking a bit different over two projects saves time for the artists, and it's easier for them to keep track of everything and upgrade the visual of an effect.
So that's going to streamline the process, absolutely. It's going to make it easier to keep a high quality, to keep updating and improving the high quality through the years as well.
So currently I'm working on lighting within gas clouds. We already have some lighting system in place, but now we're adapting it to be possible to strike from within gas clouds. This will give some extra gameplay opportunities for designers and environment artists to dynamically spawn the lightning and hit ships, hit players, and make gas clouds more dangerous, I guess.
I think the lightning is cool, but I really like the new fire.
So something that we're really proud of and that we've been working on for a long time is fire propagation, so fire hazards, and that's being handled by our VFX programmers.
The fire hazard system has already existed for a while, but it was never fully finalized on the visual side. So I'm currently implementing all the necessary backend features to get fire looking as good as possible. As part of the fire visuals, I am working on a more specialized way of spawning particles for fire, which creates a more interesting dynamic way in which fire propagates and the way things start to look charred after fire has been there for a while.
That's been kind of a long process and it's still ongoing. It's very, very complicated and it's very ambitious, but we're getting to a point now where I'm really, really happy with where it's going.
The fire hazard system itself is obviously gameplay critical. The visuals obviously help to communicate where fire is present, how strongly it's there, and to give a real sense of danger for the room you're in. The actual damage that the fire is causing on rooms is communicated through these visuals.
One of the best things about working on VFX for Star Citizen is being able to see your work enter the game so quickly, because we update the game so often. So being able to see your work in players' hands is always exciting.
You release a feature, some new VFX that are part of one of the releases, and you see players actually use your system and kind of push it to the limit, and it's always great to see.
Working on Star Citizen in particular is especially good because Star Citizen is a really good looking game. Working generally in graphics and VFX, I think personally is one of the more satisfying sort of disciplines when it comes to programming.
VFX is one of the big puzzle pieces to making the environment feel rich and full. I feel like that's one of the biggest gains of VFX, is making the game look beautiful.
So, what did we learn this week? Well, hopefully we learned a bit more about how downstream teams like VFX, these folks who generally come in towards the end of the pipeline, bring life, texture, and nuance to any game, add those finishing touches that elevate the amazing work of other teams, and add essential elements that really make the difference between the immersive and the not immersive. Now don't forget that this year's Ship Showdown has begun, as well as a new initiative spotlighting the various missions in the verse. I'm pretty sure this week it's Salvage. You can check it all out now on the robertsspaceindustries.com website. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week.